In this video, we're going to talk about two DM's Guild supplements that I think will up your Shadowfell game. One is the D&D 4th edition, the Shadowfell, Gloomrot, and Beyond, that has lots of good information in it. And the second one is a DM's Guild supplement, and I have it here. It's Olerant's Guide to the Plains of the Shadowfell. I think they're both pretty spectacular, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and we're back with some review supplements, but I wanted to theme these together. They're both very good, and specifically I used the 4th edition supplement to run a Shadowfell adventure, so I have more experience with that and have read it all the way through. Olerant's Guide is on the DM's Guild. It's about a year old, maybe a little older, and has just a lot of good lore opportunities, world building. If you're gonna run a game in the Shadowfell, or if your players have accidentally fallen there, lots of good stuff. It even combines some of the domains of dread. So let's dive in to both of these. And I'm gonna start with Dungeons & Dragons, the Shadowfell, Gloomrot, and Beyond. So this is a campaign guide. If you're going to run D&D in the Shadowfell, this was your resource, so to speak, aside from like the DMG and the Manual of the Plains. This had specific locations such as Gloomrot, and Gloomrot is the largest city that is in the Shadowfell and is always like ever changing because the Shadowfell reflects the prime material plane. Certain buildings would get built overnight or would disappear, and it was to reflect the ever-changing nature of the Shadowfell. So going through this, we'll go to the contents here. We have some explanations on the Shadowfell itself, and the idea of it is fear, isolation, and death. There are how do we get there, basically, and then gods and demons, and the Shadowkai, which were added for 5th edition, I believe, in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Am I right? I was correct. All right, so the Shadowkai were in 5th edition. Now, in 4th edition, the Shadowkai were Netherese humans that were changed by the Shadowfell. But with the love of Eladrin, I guess, they wanted that the elves of the prime material plane, they wanted the Feywild elves to have a shadow counterpart. So they kind of changed the mythology of the Shadowkai to be that. Like, they are the dark, like, shadowy side of the elves, and the Feywild is the light side of the elves. So elves, like, you know, they split off in two different directions, but we still have our elves on Faerun. So going back into this, we have, that's what a lot of this is, and certain other powers like the Gods of Death, the Shadowborn, Undead, the Vistani, and the Domains of Dread, because the Domains of Dread are Ravenloft and various other settings that got bundled into the Shadowfell for 5th edition D&D. Really cool thing I'm going to go over at some point today, a really cool part of this is the Despair deck and gaining despair and overcoming despair. And I took the Despair deck and made a 5th edition variant of it when I was running through that. And it really, really changes up play, and it's a lot of fun. So the majority of this book is Gloomrot. And Gloomrot is, we're going to skip through a lot of this. So the majority of this book is Gloomrot, which is the city of midnight. It is a dark reflection of cities everywhere. It is like the general hub, kind of like all roads lead to Gloomrot is the idea. If you're going to run a game, this is a really good city resource because it has factions, it has locations, and it has mini missions within. And that's where I found this was really useful. A lot of people will look at this and be like, but it's 4th edition, I don't play 4th edition, or like, I heard 4th edition was bad. You might not like the actual gameplay of 4th edition, but they made a lot of really good supplements for it. And specifically, the idea was that you could go to a map of Gloomrot, and your players could say, I want to go there. And when they go there, you can open up your book, flip to that section and say, oh, there's these people there, these NPCs, and there are these quests available to you. And they interact with other factions in Gloomrot that as your players are playing and picking sides, the whole plot kind of builds itself in a way. And that, I guess, now that I just said it out loud, but that kind of feels like the definition of a sandbox game where you can kind of just play in this sandbox. Here are the factions, and I thought they were very clever. So we have the Crimson Shades, the Hooded Lanterns, which I think you have to reflavor for Faerun or your own personal gods in your homebrew. The Hooded Lanterns, House Harskel. House Harskel is a noble family. House of the Eye is all about Vecna. And they worship Vecna, and then the Veiled League, and the Raven Queen is all part of this. The city wall keeps Gloomrot protected from a vast bog called the Skins, which I thought was really interesting. And to traverse that is kind of interesting. So your first objective with your players is really like, how do we get past the Skins into Gloomrot to find a way home, or that's where you're going to interact with more than just monsters and undead. There are the various areas of it, and I won't get into a lot of these, but like it's very well laid out very well, and I found this to be a really awesome resource for running around this whole area. So the Shadowfell, Gloomrot, and Beyond, I would highly recommend. I also want to talk about, there's a section over here called Beyond the Walls, which is what is the rest of the Shadowfell. And looking at this, just adventuring the Shadowfell, what does that do for you? What does it mean to be in the Shadowfell? There are, the dangers and hazards that they have here that have 4th edition stats. But there are some other fun things, and specifically, I wanted to talk about Dead Man's Cross. So there is a location in the Shadowfell called Dead Man's Cross that you can go to and ask the dead man a question, and he will point you in the right direction, or he can open portals to other areas. It's really interesting, and it's one of those like roads intersect here, and I loved this because your players can just kind of walk up and find the dead man. He's got a sign on his chest that marks who he was. At the center of the crossroads stands a grisly marker, a signpost adorned with an ancient corpse bound to its crosspieces. The constant abrasion of wind-blown dust has scoured clean the placards of the signpost and turned the body into a desiccated husk. The corpse's skin is as black as night and as hard as boiled leather. The lids of its eyes are stitched close, and its lips have pulled back around its teeth in a grin. It's just really creepy stuff. So they're able to ask the dead man questions, and he will unfurl his fingers and point to a specific direction, which is kind of fun. There are tribes. The House of the Black Lanterns is a fun disappearing, reappearing hotel, and then that was really fun. And the teeth and the claw, the frozen path, this is all like a little area you can go to. I highly recommend this if you're going to run a Shadowfell adventure. Now, I did want to talk about the Despair deck. So here's the deck, which I printed these out, and then I reflavored them for 5th edition. So if you buy this supplement, there's affiliate links down below. You can get these. And they're interesting things like, let's look at some of them. Clumsy. Until you overcome this despair effect, whenever you roll a natural 1 on an attack roll, a skill check, or a saving throw, you fall prone. There are certain points in the game where if you do something, you would gain a despair, or you would roll a luck die, so just like a death saving throw. So there's no modifiers, just to see if you get despair. And the cool thing of this is you can overcome that despair to then have a benefit. And I thought that was just really fun. So if you overcome that, and there are rules within the game that allow you to overcome it, I think in my game I had it like if they roll a natural 20, they get another like death saving throw, without a better word, to overcome their despair, and then that turns into a boon, and then all of that kind of washes away at the start of their next level, or not the start of the next level, but at the of a long rest. And it's really interesting because I made certain aspects of the Shadowfell very accessible if they would take on more despair. And it's a fun mechanic to see if your players are going to do that. So I would recommend this. It's really fun. I'm looking at some of these, but I'm reading them upside down. After you overcome this despair effect, you gain +2 bonus to fortitude until the end of your next extended rest. So you would get +2 to con saving throws, or just +2 to con, like extra hit points until the end of your next rest. So maybe some temporary hit points or something. They're really easy to reflavor, and this was a fun mechanic. So highly recommend it. Hey everybody, Jordan here. I made this whole video, and then I realized I never brought up the price. Let's go over here. So you can find the Shadowfell, Gloomrot, and Beyond for $17. And then Olerant's Guide to the Plains, the Shadowfell, is $25. A little bit more spendy, but you're getting a lot of good stuff with this one. And because I think people are going to ask me if I had to choose between one or the other, if I was going to run a 5th edition game in the Shadowfell, definitely Olerant's. But if you like to tinker and you're really curious about that despair card system, definitely go for the Shadowfell, Gloomrot, and Beyond. Other than that, I really do recommend both of them. Thank you. Back to the show. Up next is Olerant's Guide to the Plains. Now, Olerant is, or Olerant, I'm not sure. Really cool writer. Not only did he send me this PDF of the Shadowfell, but he also sent me this book of his Guide to the Plains, Acheron. So he wanted to create, and these are really awesome, well made. He wanted to create epic level stuff for 5th edition. So a lot of his supplements are level 20 and beyond. Like, how would we stat a CR 43 creature and your level 30 paladin? Can he fight that, etc.? So Acheron here is all about like really high level adventuring in the plane of Acheron, which is like orcs and fighting, and I think it's a giant cube. Links in the doobly-doo to my Acheron video. I enjoyed this, but I didn't really want to run a game in Acheron. But then with my research of Vecna and the Domains of Dread, and then running a little bit of the Shadowfell, I reopened this PDF that he did send me, so thank you for sending me that. I did not buy these. But this is not a paid review or anything. I only review things that I really like, and I really like this. And the resources of this go really well hand in hand with the resources from the 4th edition supplement. So let's dive in again to this one. Now this came in, let me open up the page here. This came in a bunch of different PDFs, and I was a little confused by it, but basically he's got it so that it's you can view it as a 2-page PDF, or you can view it as a single-page PDF, and that's the spreads and pages. And then he also has it set up that here's just character options, or here's just other stuff. So you could print out the 32-page character options and give that to your players, or it's all bundled in one PDF. So we're going to look at the giant bundled PDF because I didn't need to open a whole bunch of others. So here we are with the contents. There's the about this book forward and things like that. And so again, we have chapters 1, 2, and 3 are all about the Shadowfell in general. Part 2 is the Fugue Plane, which is Kelemvor's domain that might have gotten changed with some errata. I haven't really talked about that in depth, but yeah. And then Deities and Other Powers, which I really like this section because you could have Vecna as a warlock patron, and like how would you do that? And also stats for these. So if you wanted to fight Vecna or Kelemvor or Dendar the Night Serpent, he has statted them out, which is really fun. There are some new races which are kind of back and forth because we don't really need this anymore, in the sense that Wizards now with Tasha's, we can build our own race. But it's also nice to say that I am playing a Hagspawn or a vampire descendant or something like that. And then there are class-specific, Shadowfell class-specific things if you were starting a game in the Shadowfell kind of a thing. Backgrounds and spells and mythic options, because all of his supplements that he creates have level 20 plus stuff, because, again, this author liked the idea of taking your games further than level 20. And then a whole bunch of fun monsters and some unique monsters that are in here in Chapter 19. So it's really well laid out. It's easy to see. It's really, really fun. And he even talks about like epic play here. So I want to jump into Chapter 1, the Shadowfell. Now, a lot of this is going to be the same from the Wizards of the Coast 4th edition supplement, where the world's a dark mirror and all this other stuff. Getting to the Shadowfell, how do we do that? So in that case, I don't think you'll find this super useful unless you're not buying the other one. It has some of the despair rules for waking up and rolling on despair. But again, I really like that despair mechanic from the 4th edition supplement, where you get despair cards that you have to then overcome. It's really fun. And then has some information on Gloomrot. And a lot of the same areas, because he was talking about, or I think he heavily studied the 4th edition one to incorporate a lot of that lore in his own words here. So yeah, we have the Dust Quarter. And then same thing, right? Here's a picture of Gloomrot, and then I'm able to go to D1, D4, like all of these different areas have something fun for me to do. And outside is the skins, and there's a really awful sea, and it's a cool place to explore. There are also, he's got some NPCs and various monsters that are in here that you can pull from while you're doing this. So we don't need to go into a ton of detail about this. Now, what was cool is he's got Gloomrot here. Oh, we were in Gloomrot. He's also got Evernight. Now, Evernight is the mirrored city of Neverwinter in the Shadowfell. And he has laid this out much the same as Gloomrot, where you can go to all these different cool areas within Evernight. If you're running a Shadowfell game, this could be, hey, we're off in Evernight. What do we do here? Lots of fun stuff. I didn't notice the factions so much in Gloomrot in this area. Maybe that's a Wizards things, or maybe he just didn't want to incorporate it. But I think the factions add a lot, and it's only because I ran it. A lot of undead in the Shadowfell, and thus intelligent undead living in a lot of these cities. Then we get to City of Shade, or Thultanthar, and that was the floating city of Netheril that went into the Shadowfell before Karsus's folly, and thus was protected from falling. And I assume he's created this. I didn't know if this was a D&D supplement that he adapted it from, but it is the Flying Fortress, and it looks really cool. And exactly the same as before, lots of little points to go to, and I like that. I like having all of the options of your players are like, I don't know, what's over here? Like, that looks like, I want to walk down this street. You're like, done, we're doing it. And tying into Forgotten Realms lore, this is really fun. These Netherese have been in the Shadowfell for so long that a lot of them have changed. So there's just a lot of cool stuff. And this is the coolest art. I just, flying cities are my jam. It's awesome. Now we get into something, this chapter 3, the Domains of Dread. So specifically we're thinking of, and I'm going to highlight just one, but there are several in here. Let's see. Yeah, there's 5. So I'm going to highlight just the Burning Peaks. But in this, he took these Domains of Dread, and since they're supposed to be part of the Shadowfell, they should be accessed by the Shadowfell. And if you watched my Vecna videos, all right, I was right. It's Vecna Reborn. So Vecna Reborn is Vecna trapped in a Domain of Dread. He's basically serving some like eternal punishment. And there's his Skull Citadel, and this was really cool. So this was a fun thing to review, and I actually really wanted to run this. Well, lo and behold, this wonderful author has created the Burning Peaks, which is the location of Vecna, if I am correct. And so he talks about the Dark Lords, Vecna and Cass, and how they're fighting back and forth and things like that. Alterations to magic, so like certain magics just don't work in this Domain of Dread, really cool. Domain effects that happen here, all for 5th edition, which is really fun. And then he redid the maps, and it just looks really cool. So here's Caveatus with his skull thing, and you can go to these different areas, and it's just so cool. Like, he did a really good job. And Tovag is Cass's settlement, and the two are fighting over the Burning Peaks, which is this mountain range here. So going back and forth, again, it's a sandbox, but you could use this adventure and use these stats and play through it, and I really like that. So lots of cool regional effects and awesome. The Bloody Road has encounters that you can have. This was really cool, and I'm very surprised, and it was a lot of fun to see. So within Citadel Cavidius, there is these 2 golems that are called the Eye and the Hand. Because of the hand and the eye of Vecna, they're going for that whole theme. The eye is vaguely humanoid, composed entirely of eyes of murderers, liars, and traitors torn from their still living eye sockets. The hand, likewise, it has a humanoid form, but is made of hands cut from arms of thieves, assassins, and charlatans. The visual of that is really fun. And going through the Domains of Dread, the Burning Peaks here in Citadel Cavidius, there's just a cool piece of art right there. And then I was reading through this, really excited that had a lot of the same places. Then there were monsters, and he has the Eye and the Hand, and they're CR18, and they're just these, like, they've got legendary actions, and so that's a fun monster that you could definitely play. There is some information on death and the Fugue Plane, and specifically the City of Judgment. I won't go into that whole bunch, but if you're interested in that here, Dendar the Night Serpent, what I like about these is a lot of this has Dendar as a patron. And so if I wanted to, and role-playing Dendar is really fun. So if I encounter him, how could I use him as a patron, which is really fun. Again, fun art, and then there is a challenge rating 45, because this is the epic level stuff that he has crafted for higher level play. The very last thing that we'll get into here is there's races. And so if you're interested, there's a half vampire race and hag spawn, and they're fun. And his version of the Shadowkai. But specifically the classes, there are some fun class stuff. So again, if you want themed things, or if your players are really chomping at the bit for something different, probably not after Tasha's came out, but if they are, there are some barbarians and college Druid Circle of Nightmares I thought was fun. The Monk Way of Gravelight. You have like a lantern with you that I thought was kind of a fun, different monk style of thing. The Ranger is really fun. There's a thing called Arcane Defense where you can cast Shield twice without expending a spell slot. I really like that. Lots of new Eldritch Invocations, and a Pact of the Skull, which is fun. So if your players are definitely like, we have to do this, 100%. And then lots of cool spells. So spells like this are fun because they fit the theme of the game, and they also keep your players on their toes, because they've probably never seen a lot of these spells. And that's fun to introduce some of these. Soul Cyclone was fun. And yeah, there's just some really, really interesting spells in here. So I would take a look. It's in a book. The Shadowfell. And last but not least, we have monsters. A lot of these are just shadowy, evil-looking things. I thought I saw a shark that was evil, like a gloom shark. I don't remember where I saw him. He might be coming up, maybe not. But anyway, if you need monsters, obviously you want themed monsters. When you're running a whole large campaign in an area, sometimes it's nice to have extra monsters. But between Tome of Beasts and well, just between Tome of Beasts and the monster manuals that we all have from 5th edition, Cold Blood Press and Wizards of the Coast, I feel like I have enough monsters. Not that I don't want more, because I like looking at it and being inspired by monsters. But in this case, a lot of these monsters I would use if I was running a specific Shadowfell campaign, but I would also probably use this more for the higher level, like CR45 monsters and what have you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, those are very, very good supplements. If you're running a Shadowfell game, I would 100% recommend them. Again, I only review things that I really like, and I really like both of these. Specifically, the 4th edition Gloomrot, the Shadowfell Gloomrot and Beyond. I ran a limited Shadowfell game before COVID hit and my campaign kind of fizzled out. But that despair system, lots of fun. And if I can find my own cards, my old cards. So maybe I'll try to link the changes I made in a document, a Google Drive document down below. So I will get on that. I just really like the Shadowfell. I think it's fun. I think it's fun for your players to get trapped in the Shadowfell. So there you go. That is 2 recommendations from Jordan. The PH is silent. Thank you guys so much. If you like some of these, I'm going to have some links on the screen to other DMs Guild supplements that I enjoy. If you want any of these DMs Guild supplements, I would ask you to use the referral link in the description down below, as a little bit comes back to me, which helps the channel and supports more video content like this and others that I create. Thank you guys so much for being here, for subscribing. Thank you, patrons. And I will see all the rest of you in the next video.